is Andy Schunig. I am the facilitator of the North Carolina Inclusive Disaster Recovery Network, and I do that in my role as a program director at MDC. I'm really grateful to be standing here together with so many folks. It kind of feels a little bit like a homecoming. North Carolina Inclusive Disaster Recovery Network used to meet in person. We haven't done that in a while thanks to COVID, so it's good to be in 3D with so many folks here. We stand together as Western and Eastern North Carolina, as folks based in the Triangle, rural and urban community leaders and survivors. We're here because we want to call attention to what's missing in our disaster recovery system and what we can all do together collaboratively to fix it. We are here because, as you will hear, too many families in Western North Carolina, like those in Asheville and in Ashe County, in Watauga County, down in Transylvania County, and beyond, are still waiting for relief after Hurricane Helene. Months later, basic needs remain unmet. Housing, small business support, mental health services, you will hear about those today. You will hear about those today from folks who have lived this crisis, who have risen to meet it. People like Elisa Quarles, who lost her home and her community in Asheville, and people like Curtis Hill, who remind us that our neighbors in Eastern North Carolina are still recovering from Matthew and Florence and Dorian as they prepare for what this year could be Dexter and Ferdinand and Melissa. These are not abstract stories. These are North Carolinians. These are our neighbors who have done everything right, and they are waiting for help that hasn't come yet. A message that I think is important for everyone to take away is that disaster recovery is a public responsibility, that the organizations here represented, that volunteerism and charity and individual resilience are powerful, but they are not substitutes for the public systems that are meant to protect us, and that the way we prepare for them and respond to them, that is public policy. And so our policy, our public policy, that is our shared responsibility. So I want to start by welcoming in the first of our speakers who will talk to us a little bit about what disaster resilience and recovery looks like in our rural communities. And that is Amber Dixon. Amber Dixon is with the Western Youth Network. She is personally based in Watauga County, but serves 5 counties through their work. Amber, please welcome, and folks, make her welcome.
Yay! Thank you. I'm Amber Dixon. I live in Boone, North Carolina, and I work for Western Youth Network. We are mainly a youth serving organization. However, I do work in the systems-based world. I'm here to represent rural Appalachia as it stands. We are a resilient people. We know how to come together. We are creative in our best days and resilient in our worst. And that was I've never seen anything like it post Helene in watching a community come together. I want to make sure that we remain visible to the people that are here making decisions. I'm very thankful for support that we've received so far, and I would love to see that continued. I also want to join together with our neighbors on the east as they advocate for the same type of resilience and support. However, understanding that the same event as a hurricane has wildly different impacts based on your location. What we face in the mountains is going to be very different than what you face on the coast, and that's also different from what you face in the central part of the state. Our local counties need to be offered the support to make those decisions autonomously to best meet the needs of their communities as they know them. I have a team of people that I work with, and I depend on them to know their communities deeply. Because I can depend on them to do that, I know that if I provide them the support, then they can do their job in the best way possible. And I hope to see that from the state level down. I would hope to see it from the federal level to the state level and let those state leaders know their communities well. And I would hope that our state leaders understand that our county leaders need the support that they deserve. I also want to offer an extension of gratitude to our local neighbors. We had a beautiful sense of people coming together post Helene. I can tell you story after story of local businesses that were like, you do the work to meet your community's needs. Don't worry about your paycheck. You'll remain employed. that has been largely silent. And I think that that needs also to be centered in knowing the sacrifice that a lot of local businesses, nonprofit agencies, government offered their communities to make sure that their neighbors were safe and housed and fed. That's it for today for me. I look forward to passing this on to the next person. And I really appreciate North Carolina Inclusive Disaster Recovery for giving me this opportunity.
Appreciations to you, Amber, for highlighting the intergovernmental nature of the work that disaster recovery is and the support that folks need. I want to welcome up my friend Curtis Hill. Curtis Hill is with Disability Rights North Carolina and coming all the way up from Whiteville, North Carolina. Thanks for making the trip.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here today. I am Curtis Hill with Disability Rights of North Carolina. We're the protection and advocacy system for the state of North Carolina. And you're like, why is he here? Why is he talking? Well, this is important because the issues of people with disabilities transition wherever you are, and their recovery process takes longer to happen. And so often we find themselves in uh, so often people with disabilities find themselves in situations where their recovery takes longer because of what's going on, because of their disabilities can linger. And it also can create disabilities that people have to deal with on a daily basis. So we want to just think, and I hail from Eastern North Carolina, where I've seen firsthand the devastation that happened from Hurricane Florence, Matthew, and anything in between down in Eastern North Carolina. And we realize down in the East, we realize whether it's in Lumberton or Duplin County or the rural areas, it takes a lot of resources. And even though we're used to disasters happening in hurricanes, it still takes a long time. And so we want to stand here together with our folks from Western North Carolina to realize that we're in it together, and also realizing that the legislative folks have a responsibility in order to allow this to happen. They have a financial responsibility. We want to thank them for sending the millions of dollars they've already allocated to Western and Eastern North Carolina, but realizing as well that more money is going to be needed because disasters are long term. Just for a quick anecdote, in Columbus County, we just finished one of our last houses that were with our long-term recovery groups. So that lets us know that recovery takes a long time. This was from Hurricane Matthew and Florence, where people were dual impacted, where hurricanes hit twice within 18 months. So this is why it's important that we talk about making sure that our shelters and all those things that we are using in times of disasters, but also in blue sky times, to make sure that we have the resources necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Curtis. Curtis uplifting the needs of disability integration into all things, but especially disaster recovery, and also the long-term nature of this work. It's my privilege then to welcome up our next speaker, Elisa Quarles. She is an Asheville resident, a displaced Asheville resident, as you will hear, because she herself is a Hurricane Helene survivor, even as she does work trying to support others across the state in her day job. Elisa, thank you so much.
Angie. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Elisa Quarles. I'm a resident and native of Eastern North Carolina. My home is from Rocky Mount, so I've come from experience with what happened to my community with Hurricane Floyd. I recently located to Asheville in 2022, and I lived in the historic Biltmore Village. Anyone that saw any of the news coverage that took place, my entire neighborhood was destroyed, and we're still in a devastating state. My neighborhood doesn't have water, doesn't have power, doesn't have electricity. So I'm reaching out to you to really talk about the needs of a home for us that are displaced and a home for those who are still trying to thrive in our Western North Carolina. Since I have been relocated to Durham, I lived in transitional housing in a hotel for 4 months. I had to wake up every day, but I was very grateful because at least I had electricity, a roof over my head, access to water, and a place to lay my head. I give thanks to the Durham Residence Inn. They had 30 families from Western North Carolina there, and that was a place that I felt like I belonged. But the beauty of living in Asheville was not only did I lose my home, I lost my car, I lost 80% of my possessions, but I lost my community. And I wanted to really be a part of the recovery of Western North Carolina because I represent the non-traditional face you see when you hear Western North Carolina. I'm very grateful to our General Assembly for the funding they gave thus far in terms of recovery, particularly when you look at housing needs. There's still many of my neighbors that are couch surfing, that have been evicted from their homes, that have been displaced and may not be able to return. The $1 million that was granted for rental assistance was tremendous, but it only helped a small group. And individuals are still in need of help and they don't know where to go, and only for a short period. We're asking for more assistance in terms of rental assistance, but also mortgage assistance. I personally am finding a battle since moving into an apartment in March. I'm grateful to my institution, but I have to pay rent and mortgage. And that is something that a disaster caused this effect. And we are part of the recovery. And North Carolina is first in flight, but we're also first in our people. So I really want to thank the General Assembly for their assistance, but also challenge them to do more, particularly our legislators in the West. They know what their constituents are facing, and we all need their help. So thank you so much, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Elisa, raising the question here about the $1 million of rental assistance. Quick calculations is 350 families for 2 months. That's what $1 million can get, and more is needed. Bringing up here as we continue on about what the issues are that Western North Carolinians are still facing, bringing up the voice of small businesses and the workers that they have as part of their community. Vanessa, please join us.
Yay. Thank you, Andy. Yes, my name is Vanessa Salomo, and I am the current board chair of the Asheville Independent Restaurant Association, and I'm also a co-owner of 2 restaurants in Asheville. One is called Corner Kitchen, located down in historic Biltmore Village, and the other one is Chestnut, located in downtown Asheville. Corner Kitchen opened in 2004 and Chestnut in 2012, and we have been the sole proprietors of both. Between both restaurants, we employ 110 staff, paying over $3 million in payroll and contributing $600,000 in taxes to the state annually. We also pay a minimum of a living wage to all full-time staff, including a healthy benefits package, 401k, PTO, and a match as well. Many of our staff have been with us for 5+ years, and as we begin to reopen Corner Kitchen, we are opening on July 14th. 90% of our staff is coming back. This means that we're hiring 45 people back. On September 27, 2024, Corner Kitchen sustained 13 feet of water. It wiped out everything on the first floor, and it's going to cost us over $500,000 to rebuild it, plus mitigation costs. And we also had to take an SBA loan out. Chestnut lost power for about 10 days, and tens of thousands of dollars in food was lost as well. And then, as many of you know, Asheville was without water for about 53 days. We reopened Chestnut on November 13th with an additional 5 brunch shifts so that we could retain 15 employees from Corner Kitchen. To date, we have not been eligible for any significant grants. And as we reopen Corner Kitchen in mid-July, it would be very helpful to receive a $75,000 grant. Reopening a restaurant requires staff to be hired, food to be purchased at least 2 weeks prior to revenue coming in. That first payroll will hurt, and without a meaningful grant, it will really hurt. Since the storm, it has been our goal to reopen as quickly as possible so we can reemploy 45 people and begin contributing to our local economy, which needs it so much more than ever. We also love historic Biltmore Village and want to continue preserving the buildings and its history. It's a very important story to Asheville's history. Please consider passing House Bill 1012 so local businesses like ours can receive the help they so desperately need. Thank you. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you, Vanessa Salomo with the Asheville Independent Restaurant Association and Chestnut and Corner Kitchen. Bringing us home, wrapping us up, is Sam Stites. Sam is based himself in Transylvania County, works with Just Economics of Western North Carolina. He'll tell you more about what they are working on and the communities that they work with. Sam, bring us home.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so happy to hear that you're able to bring all those people back at a living wage. It's really incredible. And businesses, if they're able to do that, they need support, not just loans, but grants. But my name is Sam Stites. I work with Just Economics of Western North Carolina. We oversee a living wage certification program that is in 18 counties, has about 500 employers. In Western North Carolina, thousands have been displaced from their homes and continue to tolerate non-habitable living conditions. Workers have found their hours cut, wages reduced, or their positions terminated or near termination. Many business owners have shut their doors, have toiled balancing mounting debt, payroll, and expenses, and a lessened customer base. But this is not only because of Helene, but because of a substantial failure of public policy, especially since Helene, yet undoubtedly in the years leading up to it, to address the core community needs which are needed to ensure stability, safety, and health of North Carolinians, the essential, if not only, function of local government and state government. Natural disasters are hard to prevent, but economic disasters are less so, and it doesn't feel like we are even trying sometimes. It isn't just about relief, it's about retrospect, and it's about using foresight. For years, Western North Carolina has relied on tourism, a sector which provides few, if any, protections for workers and low wages. For years, North Carolina has been ranked the worst state to work in the nation. For years, Western North Carolina has had a severe housing crisis, one that was made far worse during COVID, which was another recent disaster. For years, our state unemployment system has not provided sufficient assistance in either amount or duration. For going on a year, we're almost at a year, Helene relief has not ensured the stability, safety, and the health of survivors of Hurricane Helene. It is getting harder and harder each time we come to Raleigh to hear the words, "Don't worry, we're just getting started." I'm sure it is even harder for our friends, family, and partners from the East who've been waiting much longer and have been hearing that for a long time. This impacts our entire region in Western North Carolina of culturally and economically intertwined rural communities. We're anchored by an urban hub. Poverty and displacement of our people hurts our economy. Even communities like mine that saw less destruction of infrastructure suffer when an entire leaf season is sat out. And those leaf-rich rural communities are feeling and will continue to feel the delayed pain of wildfires for years to come as Helene debris dries. I myself was evacuated for a week recently. My message to the General Assembly that I bring from Transylvania County is that there is no moment better than the current one as we enter a new hurricane season to adopt a vision for state and local economic security policy that prepares communities for the strain that they will face from natural disasters and prevents economic disasters whose solutions lie in policy, not weather. The natural disasters are going to come. They are going to affect every single community in North Carolina. We know this. So let's invite the pro-worker, pro-business, pro-community, anti-poverty policy to come with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. My role as a facilitator is so much of listening to people and kind of repeating back what they say and making sure that folks have that mutual understanding. And here's between this press event and what our network has been talking about month after month, fourth Tuesdays at 2 o'clock, going all the way back to Hurricane Matthew, is this, that we are looking for the General Assembly to invest in what works. Rental and mortgage assistance that prevents displacement. Grants, not loans, for small businesses that are the backbone of our mountain economies and our rural economies. Mental health and trauma-informed services for communities that are still recovering. It is a lot to be standing up here, to have made the drive out this morning and standing up here and talking about an experience that is only 8 months old. And so I'm grateful to everyone here who has done that. And we're also interested in that. We want that public infrastructure and emergency management that reaches every zip code, no matter how rural, east and west. Those investments in resilience pay off. We are grateful to see unanimous support for the recent package that the House passed, including small business grants. And an earlier package passed with small business grants and rental assistance, but those were removed before the Senate passed the bill. We believe that any opposition that exists is likely due just to a lack of understanding of what's at stake right now. And so that's why this network exists, to help connect policymakers with the people and the people to the policymakers so that we can build those bridges and hear each other. And we know that Western North Carolina can't wait, that we want right now, as Sam said, families, businesses, communities who are grappling with the fallout of Helene's impact and doing what they can with limited resources. We are looking for investments that support people right now. And so I want to open it up if there are any questions from folks here to anybody behind us, our speakers, but also representatives and members of the network who have been with us really since its beginning, who really know this work. Any questions? Question for folks about small business grants versus loans. Sorry, can you repeat the question?
There's not going to be as much what? Sorry? Did you want to?
Not going to be the
There's not going to be enough money, you said? So your question is, what's well, well, grants are free money and loans are not, right? So our business, I can only speak for our business. We have lost 8 months worth of revenue. So that's in the millions at this point. We had 60 staff members that are not currently, or maybe they are working, but they didn't work for the first few months and they are going to come back. So it is just really important that businesses come back as quickly as possible. Loans are difficult for businesses to take on, especially after they have $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 worth of damages that they have to fix out of their own pocket, or maybe they had flood insurance. So yeah, grants or free money. It would be so much better to have grants. I don't know, well, I shouldn't say that part. So I would say that obviously we have taken out a loan as well. We took an SBA loan out because that is the only way we were able to start rebuilding. But it would just be so much more helpful if we could get even a $25,000, $50,000, or $75,000 loan. But there are other businesses out there that are not nearly as lucky as our businesses, and that they didn't have a savings or they didn't have the ability to get a loan out. So if that's what helps them get back into business and re-employ people so that we can start building Asheville back up for where it was in September 26th, then why wouldn't they do that? That would be my question back to that. Why wouldn't we want to see the success of bringing Asheville back? And if grants are what do it for people alongside loans, because it's not just grants. I hope that answers your question. Add to it?
I mean, I think that was a great answer already, but I would just say that small businesses are the lifeblood of Western North Carolina. When you don't have support for small businesses, that means workers aren't employed. When workers aren't employed, they can't pay their rent. People can't pay their mortgages. Small business owners can't pay their rent, can't pay their mortgages. What that means is that people are displaced. They have to leave the region. That threatens the tax base, and it makes it more difficult to recover over the long term. These three problems, small business supports, support for unemployed workers, and housing supports, are interconnected, and any full and inclusive recovery needs to put those at the center of the recovery effort. We need to stop prioritizing infrastructure at the expense of our people. We need to help the people. Infrastructure is important, but it exists to serve the people. So at the end of the day, we need to do what's necessary, and small business supports is a great part of that, or an important part of that. My name is Alex Campbell. I'm a public policy analyst at the North Carolina Budget and Tax Center. I focus on climate issues, and one of those big issues is disaster recovery.
Other questions?
You put in the context that tourism alone be patronized the
reflecting back so folks on Zoom can hear as well. The question here is about putting into context whether or not just tourism and tipping alone is enough to keep the Western North Carolina small business economy up and running versus getting some support from folks inside this building. I hand the microphone back to you, Vanessa.
You want to take that?
Yeah.
This is my husband, Joe. We'll take it.
Joe, introduce yourself so real quick.
Hi, I'm Joe Scully. I'm the co-founder of Corner Kitchen and Chestnut Restaurants, and my podium is falling apart. Well, you know, and it's not just tips alone. I like to think of it as a circular economy, in that one thing feeds the other. In other words, we have agriculture in Western North Carolina that is focused toward serving people authentic and local Appalachian products. And we talked about someone came from rural Western North Carolina, and those people depend on the restaurants and on the grocery stores to be able to sell their products. It's one of those things that you could hang it all on tourism, but there is also industry in the area that was unable to operate during these times. And so I think that there's a lot more factors than just tourism and tips. And it's not really tips. Certainly tips are great, but the reality is that it's actually the businesses, most of whom a small business is going to have a hard time even qualifying for a loan at this moment in time, because if you look at what their income was for the last 6 months, they're going to have a problem getting a loan. This is where grants are really essential. Hope that answers your question.
I guess it passed on to me, John. Thank you for your question. Well, I'm Yolanda Taylor, program attorney for the North Carolina Black Alliance. Well, as you know, the East has been waiting 6 to 7 years to recover. So I don't know what the tourism status is there because they're still in recovery. And it's all about one recovery, one North Carolina. So we're asking that our legislators behind us and even our governor treat this as one North Carolina because we all need to recover. And so I don't know if that answered your question, or do you want to elaborate when you say tourism in the East?
Well, saying that there's not much tourism in the East.
Yes.
Where, you know,
well,
tourism we would all do well.
Mm-hmm.
We have that.
Well, the beach area, like people behind me are saying, we know that the beach is a tourist place. You know, I mean, it has been devastated, you know, also by natural disasters. We know that we are set to see one of the worst, like, I guess, storm seasons this year. So we are also concerned about that as well. Like, will this set Eastern North Carolina back? Because we're expecting it to strike again in the East, right? But because of Hurricane Helene, we don't know where the next natural disaster can strike. And we know there are also an uptick in tornadoes as well that impact other areas of North Carolina.
Hi, I'm Alexandra Sirota. I'm the Executive Director of the North Carolina Budget and Tax Center, and I just wanted to take a moment to say I think one of the reasons why taking a state policy focus and an investment focus is so important is that regardless of the industry that is the primary employer in a local place, a community needs a foundation, a commitment from its elected leaders to say, no matter what happens, we have your back. We will protect you when times get tough. We will make sure that you can recover, you can rebuild. That's the role of our state policymakers, our state government. And industry, no matter what it is there to provide support, to provide opportunity, to create jobs, to create connections in the community. But there's no substitution for having a state leadership that is committed to making sure every community, no matter where they are, has what they need.
Last questions before we wrap up here?
I want to ask about home rebuilding. Obviously, the state really struggled to rebuild homes in Eastern North Carolina the last 2 years. It's still ongoing. as we speak. They're hoping to start getting shovels into the ground and start rebuilding homes in the West over the next couple months. I'd be curious to hear from anyone who is either directly impacted by that or is going to be involved and watching that. What are you keeping an eye out for with the home rebuilding process? Do you have any concerns given how the state handled the last round of that? And what's your expectation for the next couple of years?
Question, just repeating this back for folks on Zoom, about home rebuilding and looking for kind of what is it that folks will be watching, experiences that they've had in the East or expect to be looking for in the West.
For me personally, I was told October 24th that it would take 18 months for me to become, rehabilitated back into my home. 8 months later, we're still fighting insurance companies. We still don't have power. We're still fighting permits. So what I'm looking, and hopefully in the East, we can bring them up also, is a quicker process to get people back home. We also wanted a process where individuals like myself don't lose their homes because of long-term displacement, and losing a community where I'm a small portion of the population, but if I lose my housing, then I'm leaving Western North Carolina, and I'm no longer the quilt of what Western North Carolina looks like. So I was told back in October there's supposed to be remediation, and this notebook right here, which interesting says love, is filled with calls that I made daily to FEMA regarding my situation with my house. We're still waiting on what does that remediation looks like. I am concerned about the environmental effects of the storm. As you notice, in historic Biltmore Village, a little oil drum was in the backyard of my building, my condo association. So gas spilled out. Are we doing effective environmental cleanup so there aren't any health effects? Does my land no longer have value because of the delay? So that is one thing as a survivor and as a homeowner in Western North Carolina that I'm looking forward to, is an easier and speedier process that keeps me in mind and not big government. Anybody else? Yes, Curtis. Sorry.
From an Eastern North Carolina perspective, I worked actually with survivors. I worked directly with survivors, trying to make sure that they receive their homes through the rebuild process in Eastern North Carolina. And we learned some things about the processes because it was so arduous about people filling out the paperwork that folks just lost interest in doing it. So it's very important that we talk about the process to make sure it's equitable for everybody. And because I might have a disability, it makes it more difficult for me to fill out the paperwork. And it's also to make sure that our processes are trauma informed, that the survivor doesn't have to relive their issues over and over again with every application process. So it's really thinking about that too, as well as making sure that folks, that we don't have these land grabs in communities that happen when disasters happen as well, and making sure that we have, that we really are putting the infrastructure in place in the education with folks so that they're able to understand how long the process is really going to take so they can plan appropriately and making their decisions. So I think those are the key things that we're looking at with folks as they're recovering, but also making sure that the homes that they're putting up are accessible for folks with disabilities as well is always key, because we're always aging in place and we all want to live in our homes. Thank you.
I will wrap this up by saying that the North Carolina Inclusive Disaster Recovery Network, again, one of our goals is bringing people together, and looking like for our June meeting, we'll be welcoming some of the folks from the new Division of Community Revitalization to start building those conversations and tap into the wisdom of the network from their experiences with Eastern North Carolina and applying them to Western North Carolina. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for being here. Some of y'all drove 3-4 hours plus to get here, and some of y'all are turning back around and making that drive again. It is good to be with you, and thanks so much for being here. Take good care.